What's good, guys? CJ here, and today we gotta talk about 2.7. There's a lot of interesting things happening in 2.7 regarding the banners, and there's a lot of things that can heavily impact or dramatically change your account regarding the characters we're getting in 2.7 and the reruns of said banners. Now, today we're gonna talk about spending your ASTRITES right. Galbrina, Lupa, Qiuyuan, or Zani, who should you be summoning for? This is a video by Use, and I want to see what she has to say regarding the 2.7 banners. Before we get into it, I'm just going to give you a little bit of my my opinions regarding these characters, right? First off, what can I say? Lupa, very good character for fusion teams, right? She works very, very well with units like Brand and in the mono fusion team. If you like fusion characters, if you like Lupa, go ahead and get her. If you don't have characters like Brand, characters like Shangli, if you're skipping Galbrina, why are you even looking at Lupa? I don't think you should get her whatsoever. Then we're going for Zani. I'm going to be honest. I'm a big Zani fan. I have S6R5 Zani. But I'm going to be honest with you. Even at S6R5, and even though she can indeed beat all content at S6R5, she still feels like half a unit without Peeves. It's just the reality of it. Her gameplay doesn't feel as smooth as other characters. It still feels very dependent on a character like Peeves, applying them Spectral Frazzle stacks in a very smooth way. And while yes, some people will tell you that you can run Zani with Spectral Rover, I don't think it's a fun experience. And unless you're someone that's a professional at quick swapping and wants to suffer while you play, I don't advise you play Zani with S Rover, right? That's just my take. So if you don't have Peeves, if you don't plan on pulling Peeves, by all means, skip Zani. That's just my take. Moving on over to the actual 2.7 characters, Galbrina and Shiuan. Galbrina is a character that deals some very good damage. She actually deals very good damage at S0 and all the way down to S6. It don't matter. She's a very solid character when it comes to dealing damage. She has range, she has movement. She has ways to, go after enemies, so the gap closing and all of that won't be that much of an issue as it is with other characters. But once again, if you're someone that is not very interested in pulling characters like Shiuan, which is going to be her best in slot partner, if you don't have characters like Shangli, like Brant, for example, to pair up with your Galbrina, you might want to reconsider. With that said, though, Galbrina is a very strong character. If you're a new player, she will easily carry your account. For Shiuan is going to be able to pair with other characters outside of Galbrina, but Galbrina is going to be his best in slot partner. His damage as a whole, from what we saw so far, is relatively lackluster. So if you're thinking of building him as a main DPS, unless some changes happens within the next, month or so, he's going to be lackluster as a main DPS, even as a sub DPS, right? He's meant to really be a support type of character. And that's really my initial thoughts regarding these characters. But let's go ahead and see what Juice has to say.
Woolwa 2.7's banners are looking stacked. So today, I'm here to tell you who'll get you the most bang for your ASTRITES.
Okay.
My name is Juice, and let's get into it.
Okay.
Let's kick things off with Galbrena. She's going to be a very strong fusion hypercarry DPS.
Yes.
She's going to be based around echo skill damage, and it's all around going to be a great pickup if you're somebody that's in need of a strong carry.
She is definitely going to be a hyper carry type of character. So for those of you that have played the mono fusion team or have seen people play the mono fusion team, she does not work like that. She's not going to be another character you slot into the fusion team and they're all going to deal similar damage. She pretty much plays and functions as a Cardathea type of character, as an Augusta type of character, where they're hyper carry units and they're dealing the majority of the damage from their respective teams.
Now, I will say, if you've already invested a lot into triple fusion, then you don't really need her, because we already have so many fusion units in the game right now. But if you're...
Absolutely, if you have mono fusion team, I don't advise you get Galbrina, and please don't be one of those people that drops a comment saying, well, I'm gonna get her anyway because I like her look. We're not talking to you. If you're someone that likes to pull characters because the way they look, that's awesome. Congratulations. A lot of us do that. This is a video for those people that want to know the best bang for their buck. And if you have the mono fusion team, in all reality, why are you pulling another fusion character? The mono fusion is already clearing all content, doing amazing, and you already have 3 fusion units. Get another element.
you're somebody that's lacking in the fusion department, then she's likelier to be a good pickup for you, especially because 2.x DPSs all have a really good track record of being very powerful units.
Yeah.
Another nice thing is that she's not going to be reliant on any specific 5-star support. It appears
That's true. She is going to be very solid at doing her own damage. She has very good damage. She is going to be best paired with Qiuyuan, but she is going to be a hyper carry type of unit, and she's not going to be a hyper carry that relies on another character in the way that, for example, Cardathia will heavily benefit from having Siakona, or like Zani, basically depends on APs to do the most optimal damage they can.
as if she's going to be quite self-sufficient.
Yeah.
I would assume that Qiuyuan is going to be her best in slot, but because she's shaping up to be more of a traditional hyper carry, I believe that means that generalist buffs are going to be quite good on her. I can see Mortefi being a pretty good teammate for her, and I imagine that Mortefi Shorekeeper is going to be a perfectly free-to-play friendly team.
And that's also a very good thing because Mortefi, if I'm not mistaken, is on her banner. So as you summon for her, you might be able to get yourself some dupes of Mortefi, which is really nice, so you can get that last dupe and give yourself a little bit more damage on your team.
Otherwise, if you don't have the full complete triple fusion core, you can even use 2 of them and then use Galbrena as your
100%. So from what we've seen and the calculations I've seen roaming around, you're going to be able to run Galbrina with Shangli. As we know, Shangli is a very quick swappable unit, and she's very easy and fast to, rotate into. She gets her damage off quick, and she's off the field quick, so you can indeed run Galbrina with Shangli for mono baddie, mono fusion team, and you can also run her with the greatest character of all time, which is Brant, and she's also going to do very good with Brant. Brant also goes in, does his rotation, drops his damage, does everything else, the heals, the shields, the buffs, and then dips out of there. So you can also run her with those characters in case you're missing one of the fusion, or you might have one or the other, so you can go ahead and run that as well.
next fusion, with Galbrina in the front and then other fusions in the next 2 slots. I'd say that's pretty cool, because it means that you have genuine options. You're not going to be restricted to any one specific choice of her, and there is something for everyone. So no matter what stage of the game you're at, and no matter your investment level, there's something that you're going to be able to use for your Galbrina. She's not extremely restrictive, and she's not a negative status character, meaning that you don't need anything specific for her. She appears to have very unique gameplay, and is also going to have ranged damage, and in general, being a ranged DPS just generally means that you're more comfortable to play in a wider variety of situations.
That's one of the things that is probably in the current state of the game the most important thing, and it's also one of the things that's holding back not so many, because we don't have that many characters, but it's holding back a lot of characters, right? The ability to have range damage, or the ability to gap close for those that are like melee characters up in your face, is absolutely vital. If you're a character that's very static in today's day and age, you're going to be absolutely cooked, because the reality of it is that most current bosses all have a bunch of movement. They'll be zigzagging halfway across the map, flying up into the sky, going all kinds of places. And if you're a character that's very static with no gap closing or no range, you're going to be freaking just suffering. Whereas Galbrina, she looks to have a lot of movement. She looks to have a lot of range and a lot of gap closing abilities with slides and all of that, which is going to make her a character that's able to dish out her damage without having to wait for the perfect opportunity to deal said damage, like a character like Qiuyuan, sadly.
Because we have plenty of enemies that move around at this point.
Yup.
So that is always a very pleasant convenience. All around, she is going to be a great investment. However, I just don't think that she's really a necessary one. You do need 4 teams for TOA, but if you already have some strong teams and you already have fusion covered, then you don't really need to get Galbrina.
I agree. I agree with that take. I feel that the only people that Galbrina might be a gigantic benefit for are brand new players that are coming in during the 2.7 patch. I feel that if you're a person coming in from the 2.7 patch, Galbrina is going to be amazing, because you're going to be able to get her, and her banner, I don't know if we've had banners, like I can't think off the top of my head, that have featured Mortefi and Sanhua. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure her banner features those 2 characters. So pulling on her if you're a brand new player not only gives you a hyper carry DPS that is able to clear probably all endgame content, but is going to give you dupes on 2 of the most used, no, not most, the 2 most used 4-star characters on every team in the game when you don't have their main, sub DPS or buffing unit. So I feel like that banner has insane amounts of value for brand new players. But like, even if you came right now during the Augusta and Uno patch, I would probably reconsider getting Galbrina, because you just came off getting 2 characters. Galbrina and Qiuyuan and even Chisa are right before that 3.4 update, and as we know, every major update is going to introduce some major changes, so we're really going to have to wait and see. That's just my take regarding that particular thing. The only opportunity where I see Galbrina offering an insane amount of value is going to be to brand new players.
Do I think she is going to be strong? Yes. But you have to consider that we're basically spoiled for choice of DPSs at the minute, and Fusion is not really an area in which we were previously lacking. Now, if you're just joining the game, or you're somebody that doesn't have that element covered, then I imagine that she's going to be a good pickup for you specifically.
Yes.
But for a majority of players that have already invested into a couple of Fusions, I actually think that Galbrena is quite skippable in your case.
Yeah.
Obviously, pick her up if she's your favorite waifu, but if you're somebody that's looking at this...
Yeah, like if she's your favorite waifu and you like her belly button, by all means, go ahead and get her. But other than that,
from a meta perspective, or you're wondering if she's safely skippable, I do think that you don't really need her. Obviously, there's no such thing as a need in Wuthering Waves. I mean, maybe Shorekeeper, but in general, there's not really such a thing as a DPS that you absolutely require. But either way, if you're somebody that's wondering if she's on the more skippable side, then yes, I do think so. However, she is looking to be strong, and she is looking to be a good pickup. I would say that you could definitely invest into her without worries, but just be aware that if you already have some fusions, she is far from necessary. But it is nice that she has many teammates. It is nice that she seems to be a pretty good carry. So all things considered, a good investment, just not one that you need to make.
That's a perfect way to put it. She's a good investment, just not that one that you need to make. I think she's honestly probably so far one of the most skippable characters, not because of her kit, not because of her damage, but because of the fact that we have so many fusion characters. We already have established fusion team, and that's mainly it. But she is going to be an absolute monster of a character. Like I said, we tested, and her damage is up there with her premium team, of course. Is up there with the other highest damage dealing teams in the game, no problem whatsoever. Not even struggling, and not even like she's lagging behind. Sometimes she was pulling ahead of some of the top teams right now, so she is pretty damn strong.
I'm going to be putting her into A tier for the value rankings of this patch. She is a strong character,
Okay.
She is going to be a good DPS, I just don't really think she is necessary. Next,
I'm gonna tell you this right now, I think she's probably, in my eyes, from the 2.7 patch, she might be the more valuable character. You might be able to make an argument for Shiuan, but I don't know. I'd have to see more on Shiuan, test him a little bit more. But if anything, I'm just predicting, I think her and Shiuan might be at A. Lupa, definitely I think has less value. So Lupa would be like a B, maybe. And Zani, in all honesty, probably a Z. Either a C, maybe even a D, bro. I don't know. It's rough with
is
Zani.
quite the broken character, and that would be Lupa. She is really good, and she is amazing for basically every fusion in the game right now.
Yeah.
Yes, whenever you pull for her, you are very much hyper-focusing on that specific element.
Yeah.
But she gets that job done so well. I would say that if you're somebody that plays fusion characters regularly, you should 100% pick up Lupa.
Okay, so we're already starting off with giving Lupa a lot of value, but yes, Lupa is very valuable for fusion teams. I told you guys this at the beginning of the video, but that's about as far as her value goes. And I know there's gonna be somebody talking about I use Lupa with fucking Cardathia or some dumb shit. I don't know. They're gonna be making up teams. But the reality of it is that even though she's not the least valuable character out of the mono fusion, that would be Shangli, you can still run it without Lupa. Right? Lupa's a very specific type of character, and I feel that if we're just, gauging the value of the 2.7 team or units, right, from Galbrina, Lupa, Shiuan, or Zani, if you don't have any fusion characters, Galbrina would be a better pickup, right? If you have Brand and you have, I don't know, let's say Shangli, maybe getting Lupa would have a little bit more value, but I think at that point, Galbrina and Lupa for the fusion team, for that fusion team, would be on similar stand-ins, because Galbrina could work very well with Brand and with Shangli, and then it would give you more options for different types of leads on different teams. So I do think Galbrina probably holds a little bit more value than Lupa, even though Lupa will eventually hold, you know, places in many other fusion teams, if that's the case.
She is going to be worth your time. I genuinely think that she is just going to continue to be good for basically any fusion character down the line. There's obviously her triple team, which is the second best Whimpering Wastes team in the game right now, with number 1 being Furlova. Obviously, nobody is going to reach Furlova's level in Whimpering Wastes, that's just impossible, but being number 2 is still very impressive. I should also add that it's a very easy team to play. The rotation is literally just 1, 2, 3, swap one into another. I'm sure
Lupa rotation is super smooth. You're playing Lupa into that Brandt, into that Shangli, and then back into Lupa. I gotta say, it feels very smooth.
you could do some quick swapping shenanigans if you so desired, but you just don't really have to do that, and you're going to get ridiculously good performance considering the low skill ceiling.
Yep.
And these are a lot of high skill ceiling characters we're talking about here. You don't even have to play them that well in order to get the most out of them.
Yeah, bro, the fusion team, the mono fusion team that we have right now, to be more specific, Lupa, Brandt, Shangli, is one of the easiest teams to play, and one of the most easy to understand teams, because a lot of these other teams have little gimmicks that go into them. Let's talk about the latest team, Augusta Uno. It might be simple in terms of rotation, but there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stacks, there's a lot of buffs you got to take into account. When it comes to the Lupa, Brandt, Shangli team, it's just brain dead. You go in, do your things with Lupa, which is super quick. 1, 2, 3. Brandt, you go in, you spin a Rooney, drop the anchor. Shangli, do her two little skills, do her thing, boom, 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 back into Lupa, and it's that simple. Super, super smooth rotations with this team. I love how smooth this thing is, and even though I have every character in the game and every team, and right now I'm loving Augusta Uno because they play so smooth, I still say in terms of team synergy, ease of play, and just how the team functions and performs, the Mono Fusion team is definitely the best and smoothest rotating team.
Provided that you're all playing them together within the same team. Genuinely, Triple Fusion is a fantastic team right now. It is extremely strong, and it is going to completely cover your needs in that aspect for ages. Not to mention that just investing into this team in general is a good choice, because it leaves you with Changli, one of the most flexible characters in the game if you're able to utilize her correctly, and if you're willing to learn quick swapping. Brandt Wuthering Waves with his signature weapon is another really flexible character too, and while Lupa is less flexible, the amount of teams she works in, considering her niche, is pretty nice, and she works in some good teams too. She works well with Encore, who's a standard DPS.
I mean, I guess, yeah, she works with Encore, but don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself.
Exactly the strongest around, but she's still a relevant character from 1.0 that people are still using to this day. So that is indeed relevant, especially whenever you consider that it's technically a free-to-play friendly team option for her. Otherwise, you can even stick her in a Galbrena team, such as Lupa into Mortefi into Galbrena, or even her into Brandt into Galbrena, stuff like that.
Oh yeah, but that would be another premium type of team. Her into Brandt into Galbrina would be actually kind of crazy. I want to try that team out myself when she drops. I'm not going to be going extra deep into Galbrina. I won't S6R5 so it's not going to be good damage in comparison to my other team. But I think that Lupa into Brandt and Brandt into Galbrina is going to be a pretty solid team. It's going to deal some good damage. And once again, another premium mono fusion team.
There are multiple different ways that you can do this. Speaking of which, she also heavily enables DPS Brandt. Yes, you can still play the Pirate Lad as a main carry with Sanhua, but it's not going to be anywhere near as strong as if you just use Lupa. Because
100%, bro. Brandt and Lupa together are a beautiful pairing, bro. They're so good, they're so smooth, and they rotate so fast.
Their outro skill is absolutely fantastic for the guy. Very, very good teammate for him, and a must-pull for basically any Brandt main. If you're a really big fan of him, I absolutely advise that you get Lupa, because her kit is basically perfect for the guy.
Yep.
Definitely a heavy recommend. She's just all around a very powerful, well-balanced unit. Her buffs are fantastic for fusion characters. She does so much for these teams. And I would say that if you're really, really invested in this, you should get Lupa. She is just genuinely worth your time. Fantastic pickup, well worth it. And I would say that if you're somebody that doesn't really have a lot of fusions, see if you have Encore, because then it's still going to likely be worth it for you. I will say that her value is relative to whether you've invested into the element or not on your account.
The reason I like Juice videos is because she's like me in the sense that she doesn't leave a lot of room for dumb motherfuckers to come and question what she's saying. I'm sure there are times where, like everybody, she has missed out on saying certain things, but she covers everything so good. Like she just said, her value, Lupa's value is, for now, is really dependent on how much you've invested into your account that can synergize with her. Up to now, there was a lot of like, Lupa's really high value, Lupa's this, but then, you know, there's someone's gonna be like, well, what if I don't have Brandt or Shangli? And then the question would be like, well, yeah, you probably don't want Lupa, but that answered it right there. Now, if you do have the other ones, Lupa's value is extremely high. If you don't have Brandt, if you don't have Shangli, if you are not interested in getting Galbrina, Lupa's value is extremely low in that scenario. You don't want to get yourself a Lupa and be stuck with the Lupa without having Brandt, Shangli, Galbrina, just no other fusion. And if you have Encore, pulling on Lupa for your Encore it's just not good, bro. Like, what are you doing at that point? So
I would say that this ranking is subject to change based on your account. But assuming that you have at least one Fusion 5-star, she's going into S tier for the value rankings of this patch.
Okay, see, I have to, I can't say disagree, but I do gotta say something. If we're saying that Galbrina's value is A, and we're not and her caveat is if you have the other characters, right? And we're applying the same for Lupa, Lupa would go in S tier. If you have Brandt and Shangli, Lupa's easy S tier. But I think the same can be said for Galbrina if you have like Qiuyuan and Brandt. Shit, maybe even if you have Shangli and Brandt, because then you would have another DPS, like a straight up very strong DPS, not like Shangli type of DPS, but like a strong DPS. And at that point, you can literally use your Shangli Brandt with like Shorekeeper on one team, and then you could use her with, I don't know, maybe a Mortifi, right? Or you can use her with Shangli and Mortifi, and then you can use Brandt with Shorekeeper and Sanhua. On standalone value, I think Galbrina holds more value than Lupa, but if we're talking about having like the optimal units they can run with, I would put them both at S, but that's just me.
Then we move on to my beloved Qiuyuan. Alright, now as you all know, I am a very big fan of this character. However, I would say that his value is nothing more than good. I will say he is good. Don't be mistaken, he is a good character. He's just not really one that you need, and he is definitely on the more skippable side.
I will say that as well. Yes, you can run him with other characters. If I'm not mistaken, people were saying you're going to be able to take out your Rosha from your current Mono Havoc team, which is kind of crazy. But at the same time, he is going to be the best in slot for Galbrina. If you're skipping Galbrina, you already have your Mono Havoc team. I don't really see him having, like, no value. You probably wouldn't run him anywhere else. If you're getting Galbrina, he's going to have the value of being the best in slot for Galbrina. But other than that, he's not offering all too much. He's not a character like Lupa. Or not like Lupa, like, you know, that a part of being the best in slot for a character like Augusta, and then offering support in other teams, like, you know, the Zani team, other heavy attacking teams. She also offers a lot of self-damage, which is really good. She has a lot of damage that she brings to the table on top of being the best in slot in one team and a really good option in others. Shiuan, from what we've seen so far, he doesn't have that. He doesn't bring the damage that Yuno is bringing to the table, and he's very limited on the teams that he's currently really good with. So he might have more value in the future, but right now I don't think he has as much value.
He's going to be able to provide plenty of buffs, and he's mostly going to be helping out Galbrena. And because he revolves around Echo buffing, he's going to end up being good for Furlova as well. So I would say that if you're interested in Echo characters, or just characters that deal damage via Echoes, he's going to be a pretty good investment for you. Now, is he necessary? I would say he's definitely on the more skippable side, like Galbrena. I do think 2.7 is giving us two characters that you don't really have to get. He is definitely a more niche, buff-centric second slot teammate, and while it is a shame because I was personally hoping he would be a little bit more flexible than this, he's still not a bad unit by any means, and I wouldn't want you to think otherwise. Don't think that he's not worth it whatsoever, because if you have his respective teammates, then yes, he will be good. Now, if you don't have his respective teammates, I just wouldn't invest into him at S0.
I feel that that's That's kind of a complex thing to say, because that same rule applies to Lupa, right? This same thing right here applies to Lupa.
Respective teammates, and yes, he will be. I don't think that he's not worth it whatsoever, because if you have his respective teammates, then yes, he will be good. Now, if you don't have his respective teammates, I just wouldn't invest into him at S0.
I think that same thing applies to Lupa, because Lupa's also a character that doesn't bring in a lot of damage. She doesn't bring in a lot of damage of herself. And if you don't have her respective teammates, if you don't have Brandon, you don't have Shangli, why pull her, right? So that's why I don't think that if that's what we're gonna say for Qiuyuan, right? That if you don't have his respective teammates, he's not worth pulling. And then we are gonna put him at like B. We'll see where she puts him, but we're gonna put him below, and then we're gonna put Lupa at S tier. We gotta apply that same logic to Lupa and say that if we don't have her best teammates at S0, why would you pull her, right?
Especially considering that Galbrena has plenty of other options that you're able to effectively use. However, if you're really big on Galbrena and you want her best in slot support, he's gonna be worth it for you then. Or if you're just like me and you're starved for good-looking men in this game, then I would say he's also worth it in that case. I'm gonna put him into A tier for the value rankings of this patch, but below Galbrena.
Okay, once again, this is why I think that Lupa is definitely too high. I feel that if anything, you can bring down Lupa to A tier, and I still do believe that in terms of value, like if we're gonna use that rule that we just used on Shiuan, if you don't have their best in slot teammates, I don't think they're that valuable. If that's the rule that we're gonna apply to everybody equally, Galbrina stands out to have more value, and both of these characters have less value, because she is really mainly good with the mono fusion, and she doesn't give you that much damage on her own. So it's not like you can, you know, main DPS her at S0 and have a good time. You're gonna be out here struggling, and he's the same way as her, right? Now, they do pretty good for the teams they're supposed to be buffing. Lupa may be even better than him, because she just works for like every single fusion team out there, which is pretty damn good. But I don't know. I feel like I'm conflicted between this particular ranking. I think that Galbrina holds more value if that's the rule we're going to apply. And if we're going to apply having their best teammates or whatever, I could see Lupa, you know, going up a little bit in value over these other two, because she just works with everybody that's a fusion character.
He's just a little too niche. We'll have to discuss it more down the line. But he's certainly not bad, I would like to say that now.
Another thing is that I feel that if we're really going to be critical here, guys, if you're really going to be really critical here, I would put him at B. I mean, you can have the argue that Lupa works with every fusion, but he only works with like 2 people. Yeah, exactly. That's precisely where I'm going. Lupa will work with every fusion team, where Qiuyuan only pretty much works with 2 people, maybe 2 teams right now pretty well, and that's it. And in the future, unless they're very specific gimmicks working around the whole Echo gimmick, they're not really going to synergize very well with Qiuyuan, whereas any fusion character would take advantage from Lupa on their team to a certain degree. Maybe not the best synergy, but to a certain degree, right? So far, I think that if we're considering without their best in slots, or without their teammates, it's Galbrina for me, then Lupa, and then Qiuyuan, just up 2.7 value. And if we're considering them having like their best in slot teams, I would put Galbrina at S tier, and I would put Qiuyuan at A tier. Right? That's just the way I would do it.
He is good if you care about the Echo characters. Then we have Zani. So this is difficult because how much I'm going to recommend her is going to completely depend on whether you have Phoebe or not. And I'm going to give her 2 different rankings depending on whether you do or do not have Phoebe, or whether you intend or intend not to pull her.
Okay, simple. If you have Phoebe, she's S tier. She's a very valuable pickup. Very, very, very solid pickup. There's no other place that I would put her outside of S if you already have Phoebe. Phoebe's going to give you that AoE, is going to give you very, very good, like, range on her attacks, because she can attack characters on the other side of, like, the field, right, which is really good. And then you bring Zani into there. She adds some big hits of damage. She has a very nice parry and counter ability, which is also really good. So I think they synergize very well. If you don't have PB, she's a blister on your ass crack. That's all I gotta say.
I think basically everybody knows Zani's situation by this point. If you don't have an acolyte to stick with her, she is going to feel infinitely worse. There is no two ways about it. She is just going to feel really bad to play. Yes, you can use Spectre Rover. Yes, you will clear with it. That doesn't mean it feels good.
Yeah, you will clear with it. You might develop arthritis in your hands. Damn, look at that pose. Look at her ass just tooting out there. Nice. But yeah, you don't want to be running Zani with S Rover. You might want to, like, if you're just one of those people that absolutely loves her, you love her devil horns, her devil tail, woo, you want to get her, please do yourself a favor and get PB as soon as you can.
To play. That doesn't mean that it's not a ridiculous downgrade from just using the acolyte. This is unfortunately the thing that every negative status character is born with. The need to have their 5-star enabler, and because Wuwa just doesn't really produce 4-star characters, there is not really any hope in sight of us getting a 4-star replacement for her anytime soon.
You heard that, Kuro? Give us 4-star characters. Look, I don't even care if y'all don't give us 4 stars. Like, give us 5 4-stars, and then I don't care if for the next 2 years y'all don't give us 4 stars. Just give us 4 stars right now, a lineup of like 5 4-stars that gives us each one of the elemental debuffs. Give us a 4-star that applies Spectral Frazzle. Give us a 4-star that applies Arrow Erosion. Give us a 4-star that applies Havoc Bane, so forth and so on. And after you do that, y'all could go and play with your dicks in the corner. I don't care. But at least do that to help players and help some of these characters have a little bit more longevity. Maybe with the 4-star, Zani would go from, like, let's say you had a 4-star Spectral Frazzle applier and you didn't have Peebs. Zani could go from, like, C tier to, like, I don't know, B or A tier without Peebs. And then with Peebs, she would be S tier. But right now, having a character that has the opportunity to be, like, S tier with her best in slot and drop down to one of the worst playstyles and one of the worst performing characters without their best in slot seems like a too big of a gap. Is like polar opposites. So 4 stars could maybe balance those things out a little bit.
That would even be able to replicate half of her performance. Phoebe is ridiculous. An S0 R1 Phoebe can provide up to 100% damage amp for Zani specifically, through both her signature weapon and the 100% that is just within her kit. It is absurd. Phoebe-less Zani did get an upgrade recently with Yuno. However, I still just don't think that Zani is a worthwhile pull if you're not going to get Phoebe with her. Think about it like this. There is a very logical investment path that you can take here. If you get Phoebe first, you can farm a very nice Eternal Radiance set for her specifically, and then eventually down the line put her on Moonlit Clouds and give Zani that Eternal Radiance set.
That's actually how I played my Zani PB comp. I used to play my Peebs as my main DPS, and she used to have the Spectral Frazzle set, and then eventually I put that set on my Zani, and she works beautiful on that. And then I proceeded to put Moonlit on my Peebs to further push my Zani's damage, and they just work beautiful because you don't really need damage on your Peebs once you got your Zani out there, because let's be honest, support Peebs damage is absolutely trash. So she did really good by saying that right there.
Phoebe is a character that very much can be used as a DPS on her own. Zani, on the other hand, oh dear. Yes, you can make it work, but just because it works doesn't mean that it feels good to use, or that it feels smooth to use. She was 100% designed around the Acolyte's existence, and that is just a fact of life. Now, if you do have the Acolyte, you get a very strong character who's amazing in Whimpering Wastes, amazing in TOA, very nice in multi-wave, and is just all around a very comfortable, strong, easy-to-play DPS that I personally use a lot. She's amazing sequence nodes. I personally have her at S1 R1 on my own account, and she is ridiculously strong and just feels great to use in general with her big meaty attacks. However, undeniably, you really want Phoebe there. S tier into the value rankings of this patch if you have Phoebe, one of the best DPSs in the game. B tier for the value rankings of this patch if you don't have Phoebe.
She was nice. She put her at B if you don't have Peebs. If, once again, we're applying the same rule that you don't have their best in slot partners or any of the partners that work well with them, Zani easily goes in C. I'm not going to put her at D because Zani can still do work, but it's rough. I would definitely put her at C if you don't have Peebs. If you have Yuno, I guess you could make her work, and then maybe you could put her at B until you get your Peebs, but just to the disparity and the difference in her ranking is kind of fucking massive. This feels a little weird though, bro. I don't know. This feels a little weird because putting these two characters at A tier is just off when I feel that Lupa and Qiuyuan are graded and play and feel around the same. Low personal damage, supporting the teams they're meant to run with, and outside of supporting the teams they're meant to run with, they're both pretty mid, right? You're not going to be running them outside of those teams. You're not going to be using them as main DPSs. So I think both of these characters don't belong here. I still think that the order would be Galbrina, whatever ranking is the top one. These two in the ranking right below it. So let's say we want to put her at A. I don't think any character in 2.7 is an S tier pick. I would put Galbrina at A. I would put Shiuan and Lupa at B. And I would put Zani at C if you don't have Peebs. And then I would put Zani. Then I would put Zani at like S or A if you had Peebs. That's just my final changes of this tier list right here.
Just don't bother. I generally think that 2.7 is quite a skippable patch all around because there are so many niche characters that are really good in specific situations, and then with Zani, it's either you have Phoebe or you retire. So generally, a lot of situations in which you can skip. However, either way, there's still plenty of value to be found here. How about yourself? Will you be pulling? Let me know.
Yeah, good video, man. Like I said, that was my final take on this tier list. I do think that if we're talking about, once again, having their best in slots, I think Galbrina is probably S tier because Galbrina is going to perform just as good as Zani. Like I told you guys, we tested these teams out, and Galbrina is competing in clear times with Augusta, with Cardiffia, with all their premium teams. So comparing premium teams all together, if you're going to put Zani at S, Galbrina goes at S. It's that simple, right? If we're going to compare them without their teams, then that's a completely different ballgame. But let me know what you think. Are you going to be summoning for Galbrina, for Lupa, for Zani, or for Qiuyuan in the comment section below? Or will you be skipping all of these characters, all of the 2.7 things going on, and are you waiting for Chisa? I'll see you guys in the next one, and peace.